Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmanitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dvapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashtakamari Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tavevasmi Najivami Trayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we always begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Abhaya Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsat Sri Simad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj, unto our exalted Rupanuga Varga, of the sum of Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Okay, so yesterday we began hearing about the glories of Sri Mathura and mentioning that in the preparing for Parikrama during the Kartik month, generally we take a tour, we stay in Mathura up to a week beforehand, going to different places and going to Visrama Ghat particularly. We're going to hear about Visrama Ghat today or tomorrow. But this is very good because also this is the place of Sri Krishna's birth. And we heard many of the glories of Mathura, many of the extraordinary benefits of doing Parikrama. Remember, every step you take in Mathura is like the benefit of performing an Ashwamedha Yajna. Incalculable. Right? Even just thinking, wishing to go to Mathura and go to Parikrama offers amazing benefit. So that's important for us because we're wishing to go to Mathura, we're wishing to go to Vrindavan. Physically, can you open that window a little bit there? Yeah, well, Vrindavan, he heated up the place last night, which was good, but it's really toasty in here. I don't want anybody falling asleep during class. It's so warm and cozy, could easily do that. Anyway, so hearing the glories of these places allows us to develop more samskaras, memories, thoughts about the glories of Parikrama, about the glories of Vrindavan, about the pastime places, about the pastimes themselves. And if you've been before, remembering, like we're going to read about Sri Krishna's birthplace at the Sri Krishna Janmastan. And having been there many times, when I read this, I can remember going there, going through the different places. It's very nice. So, it's said, Srila Narayana Maharaj narrates and says, about 5,200 years ago, at the end of the last Dwapara Yuga, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chandra appeared as the son of Sri Vasudeva and Devaki in the prison house of the brutal King Kamsa. Seeing the child's divine and wondrous four-armed form, the color of a dark rain cloud, Vasudeva and Devaki began glorifying him. Now, one thing is, it's not too long ago that we celebrated Sri Krishna Janmastan, right? And then the following day, the appearance of our Srila Prabhupada. And we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, we read the Gopal Champu, read the Ananda Vrindavan Champu, all these amazing descriptions of Krishna's birth, both in Mathura and in Vrindavan. That's the mystery, right? So, hearing this in summary, many of the conceptions, the tattva, it should spring to our heart. In his 4 hands, he held a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower. On his chest was the mark of Srivatsa, and the Kaustuba jewel hung around his neck. In response to Vasudeva and Devaki's prayers, the Supreme Lord assumed the form of a newborn baby boy and somehow urged Vasudeva to take him in his arms and carry him to Nanda Bhavan, the home of Nanda Maharaj, in Gokul Mahavan. Gokul Mahavan is not far from Mathura. It's in that same section on that side of the Jamuna. This is where they stayed for some years before going to first Vrindavan and then Nandagan. And we remember reading about how Krishna appeared in his full form. Why did he do that? Why didn't he just come as a baby? Because in their previous life, Vasudeva and Devaki had prayed that we want the Lord as our son. And they had prayed like this: we want a son like you, we want a son like you, we want a son like you, 3 times. And so the Lord said, yes, I will appear as your son. And I will appear 3 times because you asked 3 times. And in order to assure them that, yes, I have indeed come, I am the Lord, he came in that complete original form, right? And then after that took the form as the baby. Because their mood of Vatsalya Bhav, they certainly had the mood of being parents, but they had the mood of being parents to the Supreme Lord, right? That yeah, we're the parents, but he's God. And so that's a very deep and extraordinary kind of love, but it's not of the same degree as the love of Nanda and Jashoda. Because Nanda and Jashoda, they had prayed, as Drona and Dara, who were their partial expansions, that we want to take a birth and have Vatsalya Prem. We want to serve and worship you in the mood of parents, right? Which has a different emphasis. We want pure Vatsalya Prem, which means the love of a parent unobscured by the realization that you're God. Because if you have that realization, and this described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna himself says that when people understand me as God, they may have various forms of love, even as my wives, my friends in Dwarka, so many others, but it's somewhat crippled their love by realization that I'm God. The intimacy of being a parent, even the intimacy of being a wife, it can't be fully complete as long as that difference in between the devotee and God, right? Yeah, there's always going to be a difference in, well, you could say, in power, right? So, I mean, how can you genuinely feel that I'm nurturing the Lord and offering him my breast milk or protecting him when you know he's God? You know, you have love for him, but he's God. And even with his friends, like Arjuna on the chariot, when he shows his universal form, he becomes apologetic that I've accepted you as a friend. Arjuna's love as a friend is very powerful, and sometimes, you know, the idea of Krishna's Bhagavata is not so obvious, and they have very intimate relationships, but at other times it becomes very clear, and that therefore that love is not completely uninhibited, like his friends in Vrindavan. what kind of big man are you? You and I are equal. Sridham, I've defeated you in wrestling, right? Madhu Mangal, laughing and joking. It's very different. So he appeared in that way. So after but still they had this Vatsalya Prem, and so even though they knew he was God, they felt, oh my goodness, Kamsa's going to come and kill you. And so Vatsalya Prem somewhat bewildered them, and so please take the form of a newborn baby and somehow arrange that we can hide you from Kamsa. So he assumed the form of a newborn baby and somehow urged Vasudeva to take him in his arms and carry him to Nanda Bhavan, to the home of Nanda Maharaj in Gokul Mahavan. Nanda Maharaj is the cousin brother. We discussed that in detail before, of Vasudeva. They have the same grandfather. Different grandmothers, but same grandfather. So that Vasudeva could not escape with the divine baby, so that Vasudeva could escape with the divine baby, his handcuffs and foot shackles fell open, the guards fell into a deep sleep, and the great iron doors of the prison swung open of their own accord. Although the night was stormy, it was a dark and stormy night, right? And the Jamuna was filled with roaring waves, the way cleared before Vasudeva, and he safely reached Gokul. That's a marvelous story. Many wonderful things happened on the way. That night, in Nanda Bhavan, Jashoda had given birth to two-armed Shyamasundar, and a few moments later, to a baby girl, Jogamaya. Because of her heavy labor, Jashoda had fallen unconscious. When Vasudeva entered the house with his baby, the two-armed Shyamasundar assimilated Vasudeva's son within himself. But Vasudeva could not understand what had happened. All Vasudeva saw was the girl. He did not see the boy, right? Yogamaya covered that. So he just placed the boy on the bed, who merged into his original Sri Krishna. And he picked up the baby girl in his arms and silently returned to Kamsa's prison. And that's another question. How could he do that? Take this girl who he knew might be killed by Kamsa, right? That he's such a righteous Kshatriya. He's like a great devotee. How could he take this girl to what would almost certainly be her death? Big question there about the morality of his choice. But it's described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I think Jiva Goswami, that this is the nature of prem. His prem for his son, God, was so strong that it compelled him to do whatever he had to protect him, right? And ultimately, this Yogamaya that inspired him in that way was the same person who he had in his arms as the baby girl, and of course, she couldn't be harmed by Kamsa. So, from his perspective, it was his powerful love, this transformation of prem, and from the perspective of Yogamaya, I am arranging this for pastimes. What's going to happen in the prison, and everything else following. So, and also Jashoda doesn't know that she had a daughter. She was asleep. It's described that when she gave birth, she didn't know whether she'd given birth to a boy, a girl. Yogamaya also put her to sleep and all the attendants to sleep. So he returned to the prison. The prison doors closed automatically behind him, and his and Devaki's shackles slipped back into place. When Kamsa received word that a child had been born to Vasudeva and Devaki, he stormed into the prison, sword in hand, and snatched the baby girl from the arms of Devaki, even though Devaki pleaded with him in the most heartfelt way. You were meant to be killed by a son, not a girl. Don't kill this small girl child. But Kamsa is so cruel. Swinging the baby by the legs, he tried to dash her against the surface of a stone. But she rose into the sky and turned into the 8-armed goddess Durga, who was the Kamsa, was like a Shaivite or, Shakti worshiper of that form of Mahamaya. And so this was his own Ishtadevi, and she chastised him. "Are you fool? The child who is meant to kill you has been born elsewhere." Yeah. And so after rebuking Kamsa, she disappeared. And then there was a long conversation between Kamsa, where he's such a psychopath, right? He's asking forgiveness, but he's saying, but after all, it wasn't I who killed your children. Everything happens by the will of providence, right? So it was meant to be. I'm just the instrument of that, but, Anyway, he felt a little remorse, but not too much, because shortly after that, on the advice of his ministers, he began trying to kill every child born within the last 10 days in that entire area. So, she flies into the sky, she disappears. Sri Vajranabh, Sri Krishna's great-grandson, established an extensive temple at Sri Krishna's birthplace. Over the centuries, religious kings of India successively built temples at the same location. The first grand one that we have in our history was there when the first Muslim invader came. And he tore down this magnificent temple. He looted it quite a number of times. All the walls were filled with gems, paved with semi-precious stones, the stairs. The opulence of it was so great, he said, even if I had a billion dinars, which was worth a lot of money, and a billion of them way back then, and 100 years and 100 of the most expert craftsmen to oversee, I could not have built this temple. And they looted it. After he left, another one was built, Adikeshava Temple, at that spot where Mahaprabhu actually visited, but that one was also destroyed by Aurangzeb, and then a mosque was built on that site. A mosque is there today. So where we go to the Krishna Janmastan is another temple that was built by faithful, devout devotees later on. I think that's going to be described. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived in Braj, there was a grand temple there. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita about him being there. Seeing Mahaprabhu's sweet dancing, born from a transcendental ecstatic love, and hearing his sweet kirtan, hundreds of thousands of people assembled here and became overwhelmed with ecstasy. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to this place, he saved Subudhi Roy, a king of Bengal, by stopping him from committing suicide. He then made him into a great devotee of the Lord. Subudhi Roy had been ostracized from his caste by an extremist Muslim ruler in Bengal. Though Subudhi Roy wanted to become a Hindu again, the dogma of the priestly caste decreed that there was no path by which he could re-enter Hinduism before his death. Yeah, it said that if you want to be Hindu, you have to drink liquid gold to purify yourself of the contamination of being touched by a Hindu, drinking water from a Hindu, being splashed by water from a Hindu, not Hindu, Muslim. There are different ways by which you could be contaminated. These foolish brahmanas, right? Orthodox brahmanas, just this perverted way of maintaining their own so-called purity and control. There, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Ocean of Mercy, met Subudhi Roy, and he asked him to utter the holy name of Sri Krishna just once in order to become completely purified. Subudhi Roy followed Mahaprabhu's instruction and performed Harinam Sankirtan and served the Vaishnavas at this place for the rest of his days. He became a great devotee. I had a godbrother named Subudhi Roy. He was a really good construction guy. He worked on a lot of the Radha Damodar buses and different things. So Sriman Mahaprabhu arrived in Braj during the rule of the Mughal Emperor Humayun. The Muslims later destroyed the temple that was here at that time. In AD 1610, the king of Orkha, Maharaj Veerasingadev, constructed a grand temple for Adi Keshav at the cost of 3,300,000 rupees. 3,300,000 rupees. But in AD 1669, the intolerant and fanatic ruler Aurangzeb destroyed it and built a mosque in its place. 3,300,000. That's like 3 crores. That's a lot. That's like, but it's still not a billion. It's 330, maybe it is a billion.
3,300.
What is it?
3,300 sounds like. And then more zeros.
Let's see. Let's do it this way. My brain isn't working. 33 times 100,000. Up! 3,300,000. Right. I don't know if that's as much as a dinar, though. Back then, you know. Anyway, magnificent temple also built, again destroyed. Aurangzeb was a big demon. Big, big demon. So he built that mosque. Now there's a lot of turmoil in Mathura. You know, now that this Modi is the prime minister, and there's been this gigantic revival now for the last, how long has he been in power? 10 years? 13. He was going to retire. He was going to put a limit on it, but he didn't do it. And there's been this revival, so, you know, under that influence, the original temple in Ayodhya that had also been destroyed, the mosque was taken down and a temple for Sri Ram was put up. Now they're pressing to do the same thing in Mathura, which would be kind of cool, because they had no right to destroy that temple in the first place. So they built a mosque. The priest of Sri Adikeshava hid the ancient deity in Rajadan, a village 17 miles from the present city of Itava in the district of Kanpur. Today, the same deity resides in a small temple in Rajadan, and a Pratibhu Vigraha continues to be worshipped in the Adikeshava temple in Malapura, behind the present Janmastan. This Adikeshav deity is unique in that his body is decorated with the symbols of the 24 incarnations of Bhagavan. Vaishnavas visit this temple because they consider this the deity of Sri Adikeshava. Right. Very beautiful temple. Then, a magnificent temple has now been constructed at the birthplace of Sri Krishna at Keshav Ghat, with the funds raised by Sri Madan Mohan Malavia. He did this on the direction of the late Sri Hanuman Prasad Podar of Gita Press and Gorakhpur. Srila Prabhupada knew him, I believe. I think they were friendly. And with the contributions of Sri Dalmia and other wealthy persons. The birthplace of Sri Krishna is within the Malapur area of Mathura. And the other wrestlers, Chandra and the other wrestlers of Maharaj Kansa lived here. There is a wide pond near here named Potrakund, which was originally within the walls of Kansa's gigantic prison. Sri Vasudeva and Devaki would bathe here, and it is said that Devaki's clothes were washed here after the delivery of her sons. The pond was formerly called Pavitrakund, but in course of time it became known as Potrakund. Right. Okay. So that's that. And we go there, and also there's still some controversy. I remember when we went there, there was a local fellow who hands out a leaflet or a little booklet saying that actually Krishna's real Janmastan is not exactly where the mosque is or where this new temple is, but it's over here, I think somewhere near this Potrakund, right? Which is still undisturbed. And he had his own evidence and all. I don't know. I do know this, though, that wherever that place actually is, whoever has the rights to build that temple, it's a big moneymaker. People always fight for control of these sacred places because you become wealthy by managing a temple or a tirtha, if that is what you desire. Because people will always come and give money for their blessings and purification. So now, after visiting that Janmastan, we're going to hear about Visrama Ghat. So, again, meditating on this Janmastan, try to think about that. If you've been there or seen pictures of it, pray for the mercy of that place. Because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do Manasi Parikrama. Now, we mentioned about Visrama Ghat being the place where Mahaprabhu first bathed and others, very sacred place. The famous Visrama Ghat is the principal ghat of Mathura. According to, it's very big too. Our whole Parikrama party will go there and just fill up the whole landing area, all the steps, everything. According to the Saura Purana, this sacred place is named Vishranti Tirtha for the following reason. Tato Vishranti Tirthakyam Tirthamaho Vinashanam Sangsara Maru Sanchara Klesha Vishrantidam Nirnam. Wandering throughout the desert of material existence, living entities suffer the threefold miseries of life. They are without shelter in all respects and become thoroughly exhausted by many kinds of afflictions. When they bathe in the waters of this eminent place of pilgrimage, which have bathed Sri Krishna's lotus feet, they experience tranquility, Visram. For this reason, the name of this sacred place is Vishranti or Visrama Ghat, tranquility. It is said that after the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna killed the mighty Kamsa, he had Kamsa's funeral rites performed at Dhruva Ghat. Sri Krishna, as well as his relatives and friends, then bathed at this holy ghat and rested here. In his human-like pastimes, Sri Krishna may need to rest. But that Sri Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord, who has an eternal form, full of knowledge and bliss, who is full of all the six opulences, and who is endowed with all potencies that can make the impossible possible, never needs any rest. This Visrama Ghat serves as a place of rest for the distressed living entities who have strayed from the Lord and are immersed in the endless and bottomless ocean of birth and death. Every year, before starting Braj Mandala Parikrama, hundreds of thousands of devout pilgrims bathe, perform achman, and then take vows at this eminent place of pilgrimage. They also complete their Parikrama here. All right. He says something else about this place now. Right, so we would go there to do all of this beforehand. On the day of Jama Dvitiya, the second day after the night of the new moon, Amavasya and Kartik, many faithful and pious people from far-off places come to bathe at this place. This is right around the time of the pastime is that Krishna has just lifted Govardhan Hill. And then the next, I think it's the next day, they perform the ceremony where the sisters give the brother the little Reiki, right? Rocky. And then also the offering of lights, right? Of candles and little ghee wicks on that night. Everybody goes down to Manasi Ganga for that. So many faithful and pious people from far off places come to bathe at this place. According to the Puranas, Jama or Dharmaraj and Yami, Jamuna, are twins. Soft-hearted Jamuna could not endure seeing the various sufferings of the living beings and wished for a way to alleviate them. On her birthday, she invited her brother to a meal of many delicious preparations and sweetmeats. Pleased and fully satisfied, Yama told her to ask for a boon. Yeah, so, if you are served by your sister a very beautiful feast, it's not just the eating of the nice feast, but it's the affection with which it was arranged and served to you. Brotherly, sisterly love comes up very strongly. He's so happy with his sister. We see him as the Lord of punishment, but he's also the Lord of Dharma, right? He is the overseer of all rules and regulations of religiosity. He's very powerful. Yamaraj, there's no one who can defeat Yamaraj, even though he declined to fight with with Ravana. He could have defeated him easily. So he's so powerful, but his sister has a different role, right? She purifies the sins of everybody, and she's very soft-hearted. And being in the company, of his sister, generally spending his days at the court, right, punishing all these different sinners, casting them here, casting them there. What a relief, right, to be at his sister's house and to have nice, sweet conversation, harikatha, no doubt, right, serving a beautiful feast of prasad. And so, and it was her birthday. So, pleased and fully satisfied, Yama told her to ask for a boon. What could he not give, right? Jamuna said, "Brother, please grant those who bathe in my waters with faith on this day relief from the clutches of birth and death and from the variegated threefold miseries." Hearing this, Yamaraj replied, "So be it." Right? Although it is very glorious to bathe anywhere in Sri Jamuna, it is especially glorious to do so in Braj, and even more so at Visrama Ghat on the day of Jama Dvitiya. Therefore, every year on this day, thousands of brothers and sisters come here to bathe. Right? Yeah, wonderful, wonderful conception. Jamuna is so merciful. We sing a wonderful song to her, and when we do our Manasi Parikrama, on the morning when everybody does Sankalpa, we go down to the Jamuna and sing that beautiful Ashtakam to her, and then make the offering. So we'll do that also here. She's the twin sister of Yama. There's another brother as well. You know who the other brother is? Shani. Saturn, maybe one of the most terrifying gods, right? Who can do so much. He can inflict so much terror and punishment on living entities. But if you're a devotee, no matter who it is, they're all devas. He may have a terrifying role, but whatever he's doing is under the order of the Lord, under the jurisdiction of the rules of Dharma, laws of the universe. And generally on his, there are different astrological periods we go through. And when you're in the Mahadvasa of Shani, Saturn, oftentimes you experience tribulation, oppression, things are very difficult, many obstacles. Also, it imposes scarcity, right? Sometimes this Saturn takes away things. But for the devotee, that time can be very helpful for natural renunciation. The devotee sees everything as favorable for the Lord, whether it's prosperity or scarcity. It's an opportunity to either use your prosperity in the service of the Lord, or because of scarcity, not to be distracted, to take shelter of the Lord and engage more wholeheartedly in seva. And also being obstructed. You know, many devotees I know, we went through our Saturn periods, and our attempts at sense gratification were frustrated, right? So many plans, but Saturn wouldn't let us have it, you know. So he's very merciful in that way. So those three siblings, they are very influential in our lives. So the next part is describing 24 different ghats in the Jamuna, which I'm not going to read, very detailed, and when we go through all of these, very hard to follow. But the different benefits of each of the ghats. Becoming free from material existence, reaching the abode of Bhagavan, liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And at some of these we will actually go visit, like Prayag Tirtha. Very nice pastime about that one. Very wonderful place. So let's see, all those different ghats, all these different tirthas. And then it brings us to many beautiful pictures along the way. The places to visit on the Mathura Parikrama path. So we'll look at that today, and what we'll read tomorrow, some of these places. Today's Ekadashi. We're honoring Ekadashi today. So we will stop here and then continue with our day. Very auspicious day. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. Jai Shri Shri Radharaman, Juki Joy, 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 Joy.